But Ash and his team, I think, are slated to do some pretty incredible things. And I think with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we're going to be looking at a game that's going to blow a lot of people away, and a game that I think is going to win back a lot of old fans. Have you ever seen those like hipsters wearing button-ups with it buttoned all the way up even though they're not wearing a tie? What does that look like? Is it... Oh, I hate myself just looking at it. Okay, no, we're going the opposite way. We're unbuttoning a little extra. Get you some chest in there. A little bit extra. No extra charge. I'm very excited for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like, straight up, I haven't been this pumped for a major AAA game in years, to be perfectly honest. I was excited for games like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn, Red Dead Redemption 2. I was excited for games like that, but I wasn't pumped for games like that. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla seems to be checking off every single item on my list. But I do think it's important that I stress that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is regressive in the pure sense of the word. Usually people think of regressive as an inherently bad thing, because by definition, it is returning to a previous state, something that was in the past that was, for one reason or another, abandoned in order to come to what came after, or what is present. So to go backwards is to be regressive. There are definitions that are negative, I grant you that, but in this case, I mean it purely in the sense that we're going back to that which was before. What I'm referring to are all of the gameplay elements and features in Assassin's Creed Valhalla that Ubisoft seems to be returning back to the old way of doing things with. Like, for instance, the Hidden Blade, something that was so innately Assassin's Creed that they abandoned for sake of Assassin's Creed Odyssey having, you know, the narrative make a little bit more sense, when in Assassin's Creed Origins we saw the creation, I guess, of the Hidden Blade, but then in Odyssey it's just Leonidas' spear tip, because just the tip is necessary. Or something such as social stealth mechanics just being thrown out the window, something that they totally abandoned for no real reason at all. They didn't need to, but they did. Or more broadly, just the hope that Assassin's Creed would feel like Assassins. Something that's kind of amazing that you have to ask for, that an Assassin's Creed game puts you in the role of an assassin who behaves like an assassin. But you know what? 2020 is a weird time. But with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they seem to be returning to a lot of the things that used to make Assassin's Creed, such as social stealth and all of those other mechanics that we just mentioned. Furthermore, Ashraf Ismail, the creative director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Origins, and Assassin's Creed Black Flag, he's actually come out and said that they're taking many steps that they have yet to announce to continue returning this game back to that which made Assassin's Creed so unique in the first place. People have asked him all sorts of questions on Twitter, and he has remained fairly tight-lipped to this point, at least as of the time of recording this video, as to what exactly is going to be included or excluded, but he's made some major hints, such as large cutscenes playing back whenever a major assassination takes place, to give that moment a lot more impact and force, to make it feel as though you're not just a murdering psychopath, but actually a assassin who's fighting for the greater good, who doesn't want to kill people, who doesn't want to assassinate these Templars, but has to for sake of the greater good, who takes no pleasure in doing this, but is forced by way of, again, the greater good. That's something that used to be so innate to Assassin's Creed, and it was just totally forgotten by the time we got to Odyssey, where you're just slaying thousands of people for really no reason at all, when you could go in stealth, solve a problem that way. You were just expected to go in there and butcher everybody like you're playing WoW. Now, to be fair and completely transparent, I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Origins, I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think they both did things that were very, very impressive, and that were impressive just as a game, on a gameplay level. Those were incredible games, especially Odyssey. It was massive. They did a lot of incredible stuff in that game. The problem was that it wasn't stuff that Assassin's Creed was asking for. It was a cool fantasy RPG, but it wasn't really Assassin's Creed, which was most people's problem with it. If it had been called anything else, it would have been fine, which is perhaps why that very studio is now working on Gods and Monsters, a game which allegedly will release sometime this year, even though we've seen nothing about it, but apparently it is on its way. So while I think a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey's problems were a result of marketing, the fact that it was branded improperly, that it should have been called probably another game entirely, because it didn't really have much of anything to do with Assassin's Creed, I think they did build a lot of useful tools that they can bring into Valhalla. And that's one of the cool things about Ubisoft and the way that they design Assassin's Creed games in general, is that they have multiple teams that are working on these projects at a time. And as Ashraf and his team are working on a game such as Assassin's Creed Origins, you have the next team that's taking a lot of that tech and they're putting it into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but putting their own creative flair on it. And then the next time, as these guys are finishing up their stuff, Ash and his team, they go over, they kind of leapfrog them and start working on the next game, correcting a lot of the stuff that that secondary team did that they didn't like creatively, and they just end up doing this tug of war back and forth. And it can be kind of annoying for fans, I understand that, because you can have Black Flag, Origins, and now Valhalla that all feel very different from Syndicate, from, I guess you could say, Unity, even though that was a different thing. And then eventually we ran into Odyssey, which all felt very different from the games that were created by Ash and his team. But I actually think that this competition breeds better results because it forces both teams to be pushed creatively to try to come up with new ways of doing things and to justify their decisions. But all of this brings us to the main question at the heart of this debate, which is whether or not Assassin's Creed of old has aged and is no longer relevant. If those games can still be created today and be enjoyed, appreciated en masse within the broader gaming public. Because after all, Ubisoft wasn't just trying to meet a niche with the latest Assassin's Creed games, quite the opposite. They were trying to appeal to a very broad fan base, to a broad swath of gamers who just want to play an open world fantasy style RPG, and that's what they're trying to do. And in that pursuit, they succeeded for the most part, I think. But in the course of that pursuit, they alienated a lot of fans who have been with them for years and years and years. But Ash and his team, I think, are slated to do some pretty incredible things. And I think with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we're going to be looking at a game that's going to blow a lot of people away, and a game that I think is going to win back a lot of old fans. We're going to talk a little bit more about why in just a minute, but first I want to thank the sponsor for this video, NordVPN. NordVPN is the industry-leading provider of virtual private networks. They are fantastically well qualified to protect your data in everything that you do. Whether you're out at Starbucks getting a coffee, or you're just walking around a grocery store and your phone automatically connects to the in-store Wi-Fi, you will always be protected. I have this on my phone, I have it on my tablets, my laptop, my personal computer at home, so that I know my data is always protected. Now, I've tried a lot of different VPN services. I've honestly gone through too many to count, and the only one I've ever been completely and utterly satisfied with was NordVPN. Their services are incredible. I do use it every single day of my life. Again, I don't recommend something unless I use it actively in my day-to-day life, and NordVPN is one of those very apps that I do use every single day. And because the people over at NordVPN are so fantastic, right now they are offering a pretty sick deal to you guys. They will give you 70% off of a 3-year plan, meaning that you're only paying $3.49 a month for their services, and they're throwing in an extra month for free, which is absolutely ridiculous. To check it out, just head over to nordvpn.com/Luke Stevens. Make sure you use Luke Stevens at checkout in the promo code field to get the deal. Again, 70% off of a 3-year plan. I cannot recommend it enough. Again, I use it every single day of my life, and protecting your data, there really is no price tag on that. Heavily recommend it. Check them out. Now, I've been somebody that's said in the past, I think Assassin's Creed, as of Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed 3, those games are fairly antiquated, especially because I played through them recently in the last couple of years to go through and make a critique on them. In case you haven't seen those, I'll have those linked below. The games are fun, yes, but they do feel as though they were made in a time gone by. People expect different things now. People expect big, expansive open worlds. They expect more dynamic gameplay, and especially in open world games, people expect a lot of gameplay variety, which is something that Assassin's Creed just never really had. Sure, they had social stealth, and as we added more and more titles to the franchise, they shook it up more and more, but by the time we got to Assassin's Creed Syndicate, it didn't feel the same at all. Sure, there were stealth sections involved in that game. Things like throwing knives were completely overpowered. But at the core, you were still traveling through an open world. You were using a grappling hook for some reason and flying around the city, which was fun, but it didn't feel like Assassin's Creed 2. In fact, a lot of these purists of Assassin's Creed tend to feel that the franchise stopped being Assassin's Creed around Assassin's Creed 3. Which is actually kind of funny, because Assassin's Creed 3 was the beginning of the end for Ubisoft's development on the last generation of consoles. Yes, after that we had Black Flag and we had Rogue, but they had already begun developing for Assassin's Creed Unity, which came out in 2014. They were trying to take it up a notch with the new graphical fidelity, with the new architecture, with the new storage space that they had. They could do a lot more of all these things that they clearly wanted to try going back to Assassin's Creed 3 and going to Assassin's Creed Black Flag. They wanted to expand. They wanted to go crazy. They wanted the big expansive open world with tons of stuff to do, but the hardware wasn't ready for it. By the time the hardware was ready for it, they were like a kid in a candy shop and they didn't know when to stop. They just started throwing stuff into this basket, hoping that it was somewhat coherent and that it worked. But in the end, it kind of felt like a bit of a jumbled mess by the time that we got Assassin's Creed Unity, which was definitely rushed out for release in time to get in for the holiday season in 2014. Or if we look at something like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which I think was a pretty good game, but still felt as though it was piecemeal open world. It was a checklist open world. It was designed to go through, be a completionist game, and for completionists, I'm sure it's fantastic, but for most fans of Assassin's Creed, going back to Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, Revelations, whatever it may be, they felt it severely lacking. So while I understand that people feel as though Assassin's Creed has been dead for a while, or at least has morphed to an unidentifiable new form, I suppose, I don't think that's an inherently bad thing, and I think that bringing back a lot of these features into the modern context, the modern form that these games have taken, I think that could actually be very successful, and I think that could actually lend itself to a pretty remarkable gameplay experience. While it might seem like a bit of an oxymoron to have a stealth Viking, I think it could be sort of an interesting narrative thing to explore. If the player character is a Viking within a clan of other Vikings that want to just go and wreak havoc, Leroy Jenkins themselves into some trouble, it could be interesting to have the player character try and pursue other means of achieving these ends. If you are trying to play in a stealth way while everybody else in your clan is trying to play aggressively, trying to fight anything that moves, it could be an interesting contrast to draw between the two. And I think you could see some cool narrative beats come out of it as your family members think that you're a total maniac for trying to stealth your way through sequences when you're saying, hey, there might be a better way to do this that could preserve life, that could prevent mass slaughterings of innocent people. If we were a little more tactical, we could help these people who are innocent without killing them. We could achieve our ends. We could do incredible things in a cleaner way. I think that could be a really interesting narrative ploy, and I think that is something that we're going to see. Already we've seen in the trailers that the protagonist doesn't want to cause unnecessary bloodshed when he lets the mother and children run past without slaughtering them while everybody else in the clan seems to be slaughtering anything that moves. This seems like somebody who wants to preserve life where they can, and so the fact that you're pitting these two things against each other, I think could actually work out quite well. Although it does seem a little counterintuitive to have a Viking that's not a rapist and a pillager, I think it actually could be kind of interesting. And in a purely gameplay sense, I think if you retain the quality of the combat, but you also add in stealth sequences, or at least options to play in a stealth way, you could end up with a really cool dynamic world that allows for two fundamentally different play styles. What I'll be looking for personally is the ability to do a no-kill run or a pacifist run of the game. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, being that it's an Assassin's Creed game, and assassins by definition kill people, but more broadly what I mean is a no-kill run outside of those major narrative beats. If you can achieve a lot of these ends, if you can solve a lot of these problems, if you can get through a lot of difficult situations without massacring hundreds of NPCs, I think that would be a good thing. That would especially help with immersion, because after all, if you are trying to put yourself in the shoes of an individual who doesn't want to wreak havoc, who doesn't want to kill people unnecessarily, it's hard to do that if you're required to kill people unnecessarily. If you can actually go through the game without having to wreak all of this havoc, like you had to do in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for instance, that would greatly help with immersion, and I think it could lead to a much better narrative and gameplay experience. But more than anything, I think I'm just excited that they're bringing these features back, because I and many other fans of Assassin's Creed were definitely feeling as though they were starting to lose a bit of the soul that was at the heart of these games. They started to feel like just open world fantasy RPGs, which can be great, but when you're trying to walk this line between that and an old school, much more narrative game in the form of Assassin's Creed that has rich lore at the heart of it, that has characters at the heart of it that people care about, it starts to feel as though it's nothing. Again, it's the idea that if you do two things half-assed, you don't do either of them well. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but it's something that amazingly escapes the mind of many developers when they try to create something that has a little bit of everything for everybody. That way we can appeal to the most people, but it doesn't actually achieve anything or do anything well. The point is, thank God that Ubisoft, or at least Ash and his team, seem to be aware of this shortcoming, of this sort of fallacy of game development, that doing a little bit of everything half-assed creates a decent product. I'm glad they're aware of it. It seems like they're fixing it. They're taking steps, and I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla is setting itself up to be possibly my most anticipated game of 2020. And I know that's saying a lot, considering that we have Cyberpunk, The Last of Us Part 2, and many other games that will soon be announced in early June that will be coming out this year. I know that's a hefty statement to say, but I do honestly believe it. I think that Assassin's Creed Valhalla really is going to do something incredible. But as always, I want to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section below, or tweet me at LukeStevensTV, or head over to my Instagram, follow me there, and let me know what you think. Follow me on those places. It can't hurt. I send out a ton of tweets and Instagram posts all the time. Again, follow me. Can't hurt, right? Just do it now. I'm wasting your time now talking about how you should follow me. If you just followed me right now, it wouldn't be a problem. See? I'm sorry for wasting your time. Please forgive me. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.